the integrated management of nematode, right? Integrated management of plant parasitic nematode. So, so you all know about that one. So nematode management is an important. So why? So because these nematodes are causing ultimate loss of 12.3% all around the world. And also this estimated loss nearly about 77 million annually. So therefore, the well-planned combination of practices can only reduce the nematode incidences in the commercial cultivations. So therefore, we have to plan all the tactics and how best it will shoot when you are considering the environmental concerns. Therefore, the integrated pest management, you would have heard about that, but in the third year, right? This is an integration of all the possible techniques and suitable methods to manage the pest. It means that reduce the population of the pest below the economic injury level. That is our aim of the integrated pest management while using the chemical in minimum. So therefore, we are going to use cultural, physical, and biological control. If you are taking the plant parasitic nematodes, the nematode population monitoring is an essential and an important first step before you are going to take the integrated pest management. Why? So if the nematode population is above the economic injury level only, you have to think about the pest management. So nematode management, right? So, and also in the integrated management, integrated nematode management, second important aspect is the environmental conditions you have to look on, because that's what we have developed, because the judicious use of chemical can have caused the environmental pollutions. That's how we were thinking about the integrated nematode management, mean to minimizing the use of the chemical, so especially the nematicides, right? So the component of the integrated pest management, it's a drawn picture is saying that, it's the drawing picture is saying that. So so this first is a decision making process. You all know about that. Integrated nematode management is a decision making process. So the decision making process is encompassing the many tactics. So this diagram shows how you are going to plan the integrated pest management while monitoring the environment and while incorporating or thinking of all possible management aspects. So first, the biological monitoring. So I already discussed that the population monitoring of the nematode population is very important. Why? So based on the population dynamics, only you are going to take decisions. Therefore, the first step in the nematode management by population monitoring through the sampling. So you would have studied about the different sampling techniques. So in your field, if you are in the commercial field, you have to take the samples first and bring the samples back to the laboratory. And so while you are analyzing, then you can draw the population, how much of nematode juveniles or eggs or adults are there in a particular field. And then you should think about the environment, in which environmental condition you took the samples. If you are taking the samples in the cultivation time, you may expect more amount of nematodes. If you are taking the samples in the fallow period or non-cultivated time, the sample size might be less. But you can predict that if the sample size is less in the bare field, and how this nematode population will boom while you are cultivating. So that is the first thing of the integrated pest management of monitoring. So this grid plot explaining that how much of minimum juveniles or egg or adult can be there, and how you are going to interpret the sample data into draw the graphs of population, how the population is fluctuating time to time. The second one is so this is environmental monitoring, I told you. So the environmental factors, maybe temperature and rainfall also influencing the bare field as well as in the cropping time. So soil temperature, if it is high, if you are taking the soil sample, you may expect a low number of nematodes. If the cultivation time, it may be higher. Right, so this from the monitoring, so this component you are going to take, okay, whether you are going to take management or management is not needed. If the management is needed, in which practice may be the best, maybe the cultural or maybe the eradication or maybe the chemical management is important, you can decide based on the population. So integrated nematode management, so basically there are four tactics. First is an exclusions. So exclusions, you all know about that one. So exclusion can be made within the country or around the globe. So exclusions, right? So you are going to omit the entering of nematode. It may be in your field or it may be into the country. And second, reduction of initial inoculum density. So you can use exclusion technique or you can use reduction of initial inoculation density. Initial inoculation density, how we are going to reduce, we will discuss later. Third one is a suppression of nematode population. Suppression of the nematode population you can do by reducing the initial inoculum, or in another method, if you are going to use a resistant plant also, is automatically reduce the or suppress the nematode population. Next one is the restriction of damage of current crop. So this mainly thinking about the chemical management of nematode. There are four tactics you can use in the indicated management, right? These four tactics sometimes would have studied in the cultural, biological, chemical, and physical different. But these are the tactics that are components, right? That are components of the each and every tactics. Basically, so we are using there are four tactics in the integrated nematode management. We will see one by one. Exclusions. The exclusion is a wider concept, right? If you are thinking about you are going to exclude the nematode from your country, that is the legalized quarantine measures, right? So quarantine end reports, you have to be very careful. You will know about that one. There are legislations and laws about the plant quarantine. So from the plant implementation of the plant quarantine law, it means that in the end report, if you are checking the planting material imported from the another countries or movement of the vegetables or vegetable products or plant products into the country, if you are checking very clearly the end reports, then this is, we call it as an countrywide exclusion of nematodes. Before entering into the country, you can exclude. So normally you all know about that when nematode cannot move long distance by their own power because these are delicate worm-like organism. It needs thin film of water for the movement. But how it moves in the long distances, mainly passive, right? Key passive means by human can move by the adhering the soil particles in their boots and clothes, or if the soil particles adhere to the equipment used for the plant preparation, or if importing the planting materials contaminated with the nematode eggs and juveniles, these are the passive way how nematode is trans-disseminated in long distances from one district to another district or one cultivation area to another cultivation area. So wind can help and over the flooding can help or animals, especially insects and birds and livestock, can help the movement of the life stages of the nematode. Maybe eggs, mainly eggs. So juveniles cannot survive for a long time in the dry conditions, but egg can survive because they have their own tactics of sticking mechanisms, right? Eggs can stick on these farm implements or animals' hairs or bird feathers or legs, and it can move from one area to another area. Or if you are transporting unauthorized planting materials, I mean contaminated planting material, if you are moving, for example, if you are going to cultivate the Jaffna local tomato in Novarelia, if someone is transporting the seed, especially seedlings, from this Jaffna infested nursery bed to Novarelia, then it can move Novarelia very easily, right? In this way, so if you are taking care of exclusions, then you can minimize, right? So especially from this exclusion method, the countrywide, the nationwide the exclusion method. So in the United States, especially they have through the quarantine, they have managed very successfully the Globadera. You all know about the Globadera is Globadera rosso-chinensis potato nematode and Heterodera, right? Heterodera also they managed very nicely. And the second thing, but they use the quarantine or their country-wise quarantine laws to prevent the soybean cyst nematode. They cannot because Heterodera glycine spread it even beyond the legislative control. That is the problem for implementing the legislation. If someone is violating the legislations, then that person can easily transmit the nematode from one country to another country. That's how the global wise quarantine measures developed by the European Union and the Mediterranean for especially these types of nematode. You can find it. So the Aphelangoides species and Ditylangus destructor, you all know about that one, the bulb nematode, Aphelangoides reniform nematode, and the Rhedophilus, right, citrus nematode, and Zibanima, right, many vegetable crops. These nematodes and Globadera and Pallida, Globadera pallida and Globadera restochina in potato, right, golden nematodes. Strictly, they are very importing one of these crops, especially in the green conditions, seedlings or tuber on, they are very strict. They are checking in the end reports. And if samples collected in the end reports, and you have to, if you are importing something from the another country, then you have to, the consignee should put this whole importing material into the quarantine for a long time. And if the quarantine checking is negative, only you can allow to bring the materials into the country. If it is negative, then they will discard it, right? They will discard these materials in the quarantine, the end reports, right? So even that's how they are mentioning the exclusion you can main. So through the first is certified, if you are using the certified planting, right, certified planting material. So if you are using the certified planting material and nematode free planting stocks from the nematode free planting stocks producing nurseries, means certified nurseries. That's also government now, time to time Department of Agriculture certifying nurseries. So this nursery, if you are getting the planting material, it should be free from the nematode. So if you are using this certified planting material, then you can easily exclude the nematode from your field or into the, right. Next one. Exclusion. Then reduction of in the initial inoculum density. The second technique is an you can reduce the inoculums, the initial population of these nematode by using the several aspects. So you can use crop eradications, mean previously cultivated crops, or if the field is contaminated or infested with nematodes, if you are completely eradicating or if you are isolating that field and completely abolishing the field, or if you are properly using the proper sanitation measures, so before cultivation, you can minimize the initial inoculant density. Second one, there's you can use several cultural practices, and I will discuss one by one later. And if you're implementing the vertical plant resistance, means if you are using the resistant crops, so then also you can easily reduce the initial inoculum density, or you can use other tactics, chemical nematicides, biological control agents, or physical treatments. We will discuss one by one. So eradication and containment and sanitation. How you can use solarization techniques or heat treatment, especially if you are suspecting that your field from the population monitoring, right, for the sampling, you can think, okay, how much nematode exojuveniles will be there in the field, and if you are eradicating by using the fumigation. So earlier they used methyl bromide, but it has been banned. But even though you can, if you are plantation crops, especially the tea and rubber, you can use methyl bromide for fumigations, right? Because there's a nematode problems are there in the tea, especially the tea nematodes. So you can use the fumigation or the heat treatment. This means solarization, especially you can use soil surfaces for solarization, but it will not give prominent eradication. Why? So most of the nematode living the root zone of the crops, especially 10 to 15 to 30 centimeter of the topsoil only, you can easily kill. Others, or at the time of treatment, so nematode can able to move down. So these fumigations or heat treatment will not work beyond a certain level in the soils. Therefore, after the finishing of the heat treatment or completion of the fumigation, nematode will again move to the top layers and it can cause damages. But it somehow you can kill the initial inoculum, especially the X. X cannot be moved down, right? So you can easily kill the X of these nematodes. So even the plowing the top layer of the soil, you are exposing, easily you can eradicate these nematodes. The cultural practices, these are the cultural practices. It's common, right? So common practices for many pests, even the soil-borne insect and soil-borne pathogen would have studied in the second year, the third year, first semester as well in the pest management, right? But these cultural practices, so you can tremendously, you can reduce the nematode population, especially cleaning of the planting stocks, right? So if you are using the cleaning of the planting stocks, you can reduce, and crop rotations first. So cleaning of planting stock, you all know about that one. You can use hot water treatment of the planting stocks, or before cultivation of before transplanting, you can dip in the slightly or diluted chlorinated water, so you can clean the planting stock. The crop rotations and cropping system, you are using the same crop in the same field continuously, there will be a chances for the booming of the nematode population, because it's tremendous food will be available for the existing nematode population because the host crop. So if you are changing, crop rotation means you are changing the host. The host is not compatible for the nematodes, then these nematodes will be die, right? These nematodes will die due to the starvation. So that will reduce the population considerably, right? Considerably changes you can expect in the nematode population. The cropping system. So if you are cultivating the many crops, so this is these two are definitions. Sometimes your crop rotation cropping system may confuse you. That's what I put it, these definitions, right? The cropping system, if you are cultivating more than 2 crops in a particular field, right? Or by maybe stripe cropping or maybe mixed cropping, it may be intercropping. So if you are cultivating that, there will be a chances for declining of nematode to disseminate from one field to another or one infested area to another because of these hosts are not compatible. So if you are cultivating the strip rows, mean one row if it is infested, nematode will not move to another row because its host is not compatible. So therefore the crop rotation is another way to minimize the nematode population, initial nematode inoculation. These tables showing there are so many nematode species. These nematode species, which crops are not host or poor host. For example, if you are taking the Belanolemis, right? So if you are cultivating marigold or tomato or many other things, right? Tomatoes, or these crops can easily, you by cultivating these crops as a strip or intercrop with your main crop, you can minimize nematode. For example, if you are taking, so if you are taking the heterodyraglycine, soybean, right? If you are cultivating the soybean, so then as a strip crop or mixed crop, you can use the monocots, especially, right? Monocost or tobacco, especially tobacco is producing nicotine. More amount of nicotine can minimize the heterodyrady, right? Glycine, right? So heterodyrady nematode. So is that so? If you are cultivating or rotating the crop with the main crop in alternate season, there will be more chances for reduction of initial population for cultivation of next season, or you can continuously reduce the population if the nematode will be persisted as a cyst in a long-term basis. For example, soybean cyst nematode, if it is infested in a particular field, it can be there as a cyst more than 10 years. So right, if you are rotating these crops, so with the main crops, there will be more chances of dying of nematodes by starvation because there will be no food, right, continuously for the nematode population. Next one. So these are the another nematode species, and I saw this Melodogyne, especially the Melodogyne is a species of Folibacus, right? Folibacus is a species. So if it is a Folibacus species, mean there will be very difficult to choose the crops which will be as act as a non-host. So they, even though some of these hosts, right, they have been selected, you can use as orchard grasses, especially Melodogyne. If it is infested in your vegetable field, then you can go for orchard grasses for the next season or two season continuously. Again, you can back to cultivate main crop. The problem of this crop rotation, or if you are going to use a mixed cropping, many farmers are not preferring. So because their profit reduction will be there, right? Because if you are going to cultivate tomato, if you are mixing with another crop with tomato, there will be it's obvious that the tomato number of plants you are going to plant in a particular acre will be reduced. The main crop will be less. For example, if you are cultivating tomato, 400 tomato plants per lajam as a monocrop. If you are cultivating with an crotalaria or millets, then you may plant 200 plants. It means half of the tomato will be planted. Then your yield will be less, your profit will be less. That's how many farmers are not prefer. Uh, many farmers are not prefer to choose crop rotation. That's a very big problem. Not only the nematodes. So for example, if you are taking in the onion cultivation in Jaffna Peninsula, so nowadays twister disease and downy mildew of the onion, bulb rotting, it's a very severe problem. So because of these malpractices, followed by the farmer. So that's how, as an agricultural scientist, so nematode, if you are having the knowledge in the nematodes, and we have to advise the farmers. So how you can they can plan their cropping schedule. I saw these are the intercrop and cover crop. How, so it's a definition, right? How these intercrop and cover crops and trap. So other than the intercrop, some crops if you are using as an intercropping, it means we call it as an cover crops or trap crops. So cover crops and trap crops, for example, if you are cultivating Menadogine, the crottal area going to act as a trap crop. Trap crop means, so these trap crops will attract more amount of nematode towards them. Then the population or the incidence in the main crop will be less. That's so. So nowadays, many people they can use just before the cultivation, you can cultivate especially gingerly and crottal area giants, especially these sunhams and many pearl millets and finger millets just before the cultivation, because they're short crops, 30, 40 days, up to 60 days to 70 days. You can easily harvest, right? While you're harvesting, so you are removing majority of the nematode population. Or you are getting the yield as well as you are removing the nematodes. So that's how. So earlier cultivation, farmers followed that. But nowadays, it's a profit-oriented cultivation, agriculture. Farmers are reluctant. But so many nematode species, because this is a soil-borne pathogen. So many nematode species or nematode attacks can be minimized by using these cultural aspects, especially crop rotation, crop the diversifying the crops or trap crops, antagonistic crops. Some crops are act as an antagonist, especially the marigold. If you are cultivating marigold as a border crop of the main crop, so from the adjacent infested field, nematode will not come in because these marigold will act as antagonist, right? So the antagonist, sometimes we call it as antagonistic crops, right? Antagonistic, they will not allow to nematode because they are these roots of these antagonistic crops producing certain chemicals act as a nematicides. That's how nematodes will not come, right? So in organic amendments, the another technique is if you are applying, right? If you are applying more amount of organic amendments to the field, it will give multi benefits for if you are not considering the nematode, other than the nematode attack, so if you are applying this organic amendment, so it will give multi benefits to the farmers. But nowadays, farmers are not preferred because the slow releasing effect of the nutrition and also advanced high yielding cultivars need more amount of NPK in very short times. For example, if you're rising 3.5 varieties, if you are not giving high doses of nitrogen, and they will not give yield. For the yield, they are farmers and the cultivation people, they are thinking about the yield and the profit, not think about the pest. So once the pest incident happen, they will not get much amount of yield continuously if you are inputting many amount of inorganic fertilizer. But organic amendments, they are improving the soil microorganism, the best beneficial microorganism improvement through the application of organic amendment. It can conserve the water, it can uh, increase the beneficial microorganism. They are releasing the nutrition slowly and also absorbing the toxic metals and converting into metal chelation, non-availability. So that's how it will not be, these chemicals will not be toxic to the human being. For example, arsenates and nickels, these organic amendments can absorb it and converting into non-available form. If it is in the non-available form, it will not cause a damage to the human being. So that's a benefit, right? Organic amendments. So, for example, they are recommending, especially for the nematode, oil cakes and the green manures, especially for the root node nematode management. If you are using the god manure and the glyceridia, right, as a green leaf, so you can tremendously decline this nematode because the while decomposing the green manures, they will release more amount of secondary metabolites chemicals. We call it as a phytotoxic. These are chemicals are nematicidal. It will give nematicidal effects. And also, so this, if you are applying this one, nematode cannot move because availability of the water for the nematode will be less, right? Second, so certain green manures, for example, if you are taking the azadirachta, they are releasing many nematicides. Azadirachtin, nymphin, and nimbidine, there are chemicals. So they can able to kill the juveniles and eggs of these nematodes, right? So chitin-based preparation nowadays, therefore the shells of the seafood, sea and especially seafood, the crabs and prawns, the shells they are using, they are consisting more amount of chitin and pectin, and if you are applying this chitin and pectin to the soil, so they can easily kill the nematodes by changing the chemical nature of the soil. But some are not giving the prominent effect, but some are, many of these organic amendments are prominent for declining initial or cultivating the population of these nematodes, right? Then the fallow period. Nowadays, we are not preferred to fallow the land, right? The fallow land, fallowing, why we are giving the fallowing? There are many reasons. One reason is to prevent the complete continuous depletion of the nutrition from the soil. Second thing is to kill the existing population of the pest. If you are taking the nematode, it's a nematode, eggs and juveniles. So that's how the farmers are practicing in the June, July time, they are plowing. So if the fallowing time, at the end of the fallowing time, if you are plowing, you are exposing these juveniles and eggs to the harsh and hot environment. That's how these juveniles and eggs will be killed. So during the fallow period, there will be no food for the nematodes. Adult will be die due to the starvations. But some nematodes, if they are producing cyst, at the hot temperature during the fallow period, right? So it can more chances to heal their cysts. Even the certain disadvantage, if you are continuously using the fallow period, there will be chances for aeration. The soil will be in the dry. So moving heavy winds can move the soil particles from one area to another area. And also it will kill the beneficial microorganism too, because beneficial, if you, during the fallow period, the soil will be dry, beneficial microorganism will be dry. But it is, even though there will be some detrimental effect, but the fallow period is recommended nearly about 6 weeks to 3 months to manage the nematode very efficiently. So that time of planting and harvest, I already tell you that population monitoring. If you are monitoring the population, you can expect that if there is no crop in the field, nematode population will be less. And also nematode need, right? Nematode need certain amount of moisture and certain amount of temperature to multiply and for the survival. So if you are planning your cropping calendar, that is suitable for crop, not suitable for the nematodes, you can easily escape from the nematode infestation, right? That's how mainly they are using the early planting, right? For early planting, if you are cultivating the planting before commencement of the season, then you can escape the incidence of the nematode in the attacking or infestation at the seedling stages. So crop will be mature when the season starting. So that's how, and also harvesting time. So normally nematode multiply and increase the number at the time of harvesting. So at the optimal level of harvesting period, if you are deciding that optimum, then easily you can remove before multiplication of this nematode. Then there will be no food, enough food for the nematode multiplication. Nematode will be dying. Right, the planting. If you are adjusting the planting and harvesting time also, it's the best suitable for management of nematodes. Why? At the harvesting time and the planting time, temperature will be vary. Rainfall will, your moisture, soil moisture will be vary. That will not suitable for nematode multiplication, but will be suitable for the your main crop cultivation and harvesting. Right. Next one is an overall farm hygiene. So that's what I told you. So overall farm hygiene and complete disposal of the stubbles before cultivation, proper tillage and plowing of the land, and proper if you are using exposing of the land to the high temperature to kill the nematodes, and if you are maintaining the your farm in proper moisture, optimum moisture condition, proper nutrition is another one. For example, if you are applying more amount of nitrogen, it will favor for the nematodes. If you are applying more amount of potassium, it will strengthen the roots. If the root is in very strengthened condition, it will produce more amount of root exudate. Root exudate will be attracting more amount of beneficial microorganism. This beneficial microorganism will cover the entire root. Then there will be no hole for the nematode invasion. So that's how it is recommended to maintain optimum nutrition and optimum soil conditions. Especially they are preferred to apply more amount of potassium and the phosphorus. That's how farmers, it is recommended by the scientists application of higher amount of organic amendment. The organic amendments you can give more amount of potassium compared to the nitrogen. Nitrogen will be in optimum level. So that's how the difference between inorganic fertilizer and organic fertilizer. Organic fertilizer, nitrogen will not be in high, but inorganic fertilizer, nitrogen. Nowadays, the high yielding plants need higher amount of nitrogen. That's how it is not giving proper yield while you are cultivating these new varieties with organic amendments. That's the problem, right? So in the alfalfa, so there will be some research evidences ammonium nitrogen, right? Ammonium application. That's how we are preferring the poultry manure. If you are applying the poultry manure, I mean ammonium, high amount of ammonium. This ammonium, while you are applying in the soil, it will remove more amount of ammonia. The ammonia will be very toxic to the not only the nematode, but also the many microorganisms. It will kill many microorganisms, including higher amount of nematode. If the field is suspected with nematode infestation, no problem, you can apply for the poultry manure, fresh poultry manure. That's the reason why they are removing and build up in the ammonia. Second, the research for diplenger dip sacking. So in on alfalfa means onion bulb-prone nematode. These are bulb-prone nematodes. If you apply high amount of calcium, they're increasing the resistance to the crops. So the nematode attack will be less if you are applying more amount of calcium. So that's how integrated plant nutrition management. Nowadays, instead of integrated pest management, nowadays they are boosting the term integrated plant and soil management to minimize the pest incidences. Right? That's how they are mentioned. And next one is the biological control. These are the cultural aspects. We have discussed with exclusion. We have discussed with how you can minimize the nematode incidence, initial incidences by using the cultural aspects. The third one is a biological component. So you can also use the biological component. So I mean biological organisms. So pathogens and parasites and predators that can attack on the parasitic nematodes, plant parasitic nematodes, so antagonistic. They have mentioned that antagonistics, especially antagonistics, so especially they are using the trichoderm. For example, if you are taking nematode trapping fungi, right? The nematode trapping fungi, the mode of action. So for the nematode trapping fungi producing so much amount of mycelia, is so much amount of mycelia, that can trap the nematodes, especially juveniles. If it is no juveniles is trapped, then juvenile will be killed by using a suicidal mechanism. So what's the advantage is, especially they are in vitro. They are very successful in vitro, in very difficult to in very difficult to infective stages of the cyst nematode, right? Root nematodes or root node nematodes, because very hardy. These cyst and root node nematodes are very hardy, but it can work on for juveniles. And Faciliomyces, another one. The nematode trapping fungi, Faciliomyces lecanius, right? So hyphal penetration can kill. Right? So as advantages again the rhizospheric component. So if the another thing is an environmental condition also favor for this development of biocontrol agent. If the environmental condition favor the development of biocontrol agent, then it can easily minimize the nematodes by killing. Oh, so especially the Bacillomyces attract on the eggs of several nematodes. Egg, their target is an egg, hyphal penetration, kill the egg, but you have to apply for high soil temperature, it's requires. And you have to apply for this 10 to the power 6 C, a colony forming unit. Large amount of propagules is needed to minimize the recommended amount of nematode. Then verticillium, another one is the verticillium clavidophorium, right? So verticillium clavidophorium is also the fungi. These are hyphal penetration. So they can easily produce in vitro metrically you can, and you can use this one in the 10 to the power. Low population, low propagulin can work very nicely. Right, in these nematode, these verticillium also producing resting spores. It can be there in the soil for a long time. When the condition is suitable, it will proliferate its population. It can minimize it. But the limitation, the seed treatments are ineffective. If the seed treatment is ineffective, means so time to time when the crop is there in the field, you have to inoculate. And obligate parasite, another one is a pestule. Obligate parasite, there will be a problem. The crop is there only, it will be there. Otherwise, the biocontrol agent will not be there, right? So that's the thing. So these adhesive spores are killing the nematode advance, the highly virulent. So Pastura, it has been studied in several areas, and so they are high virulent and can easily kill the nematodes, but it's an cost, it's an obligate parasite. Limitations are so difficult to cultivation, right? Difficult to. Another one is a Hirsutella, right? Hirsutella thomsoni, so sometimes we call it as Hirsutella thomsoni. It can attack on my too. Right? The Hirsutella is adhesive spores. Advantage is an relatively easy to culture in vitro, but this is a poor saprophytic competitor, right? Limited spread in soil. This means saprophytic competitor means another beneficial organism will be there. This microorganism effect will be less. Other one is there's a bacteria. These all are the fungi. Now we are talking about the bacteria. This bacteria producing toxins, right? Especially producing rhizobacteria. I mean, that's what I told you. If you're applying and enriching the organic amendments around the roots, root will produce more amount of root exudate. Root exudate attacks least amount beneficial microorganism, especially one is rhizobacteria. This rhizobacteria producing toxins or sometimes modify the roots. If the root is modified or trapped and matted with these beneficial microorganism, there is no chances for no room for nematode penetration. So advantage is an easy to culture. You can use as a dipping, right? Heat treatment, but the limitation are the short period, right? The short period. And another one is the endophytic fungi. Certain fungi groups we call it as an endophytic fungi groups, right? Endophytic fungi groups are there. These endophytic fungi groups are the competitions in the root. That's the same as beneficial microorganism, but identification, the proper advantages is high, but disadvantage identification of proper endophytic fungi that are causing damages on the nematode will be very difficult. but easily formulated and mass mal, because these are also, if it is an endophytic, is an obligate, right? So these plant growth even in the absence of the nematode, because they are going to grow inside the plants. That is an advantages. So these are some of these photos it's showing, right? So nematode trapping fungi, right? Here they are producing these adhesive spores. So nematode mycelia is growing. It will trap. Here you can see the suicidal. Here you can see the suicidal, right? Suicidal trap. How they are, right, tightening the neck of a juvenile through that. So this is we call it as a suicidal loops. They are producing certain amount of loops. These loops are trapping. While moving the juveniles through this, they can trap the juveniles and tightening the necks and finally kill. So this is parasitic nematodes. That's what I told you, right? So the Hisilda temptoni, I think so. How they are producing the spores while they are producing the spores, right? So this is spores. If they are producing more amount of spores, from the spores, mycelia will grow. For example, you can find here the mycelia here. You can find the mycelia here. This mycelia, how it is penetrating inside here. You can find mycelia is penetrating inside. Here, these are the spores, right? These are the spores. Here, spores, right? They are the spores. So, Pastura. So, another one is how this Pastura is, right, multiplying and completing its life cycles along with the root knot nematode life cycles. Here, yeah, you see these are the root knot nematode life cycle. This is a pastural penetrance life cycle. While they are growing right inside the nematode. So if the plant is there, they are producing more amount of spores. Here, the nematode cyst filled with spores. It is killing the cyst root knot, and spores are coming out of the soil. Here, this electron microscopic picture is showing that how the spores are there, right? This is a penetration of Pastura inside the root knot nematode. The last one is the chemicals. If all these aspects, all these other tactics, cultural and physical and biologicals are not working, then we have to think about the chemical nematicides. The chemical nematicides earlier from the 90s, right, from the 19th century, so they were highly used, these chemical nematicides. But the problem of the nematicides are very toxic. That's how many nematicides nowadays has been banned. So another problem of chemical nematicide is these nematicides can only kill the juveniles that are free living or just before the penetration of nematode into the crops. Once the nematode penetrated into the crop, there will be very difficult to the work nematicidal compounds. That's the things. First thing. Second thing, so if you are going to use systemic nematicides are very rare. Only one or two are there. For example, in oxamine, right? So oxamine they are used for foliar treatment. It can penetrate through the foliar and it can go inside and kill the nematode. But so many nematode they are attacking the roots. Once it's penetrated into the roots, it will be very difficult. And also, so plants will think about this nematode and detoxify very quickly. That's how these concentration that will kill the nematode will not go inside the plants. That's how even the systemic nematicides will not work very efficient. These recommended nematicides still, so these we can classify into three major categories. One is the fumigants. Fumigants mean, so before cultivation of crops, you can use the fumigants to kill the nematodes, whatever the nematode eggs and juveniles are there in the soil. Another one is organophosphates. These organophosphates you can apply in the plant while cultivating the plant before the nematode penetration, so they can kill. Another one is their carbamates groups. Organophosphates and carbamate groups are first generation and second generation chemicals. They are very toxic. Many of these chemicals has been banned. No chemical is not available to agricultural use. Expect special provision is given if the certain nematodes are or pests are attacking very highly. Because of this very dangerous, these chemicals are nematicides. These are the broad spectrum chemicals, pesticides. They are dangerous. It will be there in the soil and it will leach into the water. It can cause many health impacts for human beings. That's how. Nowadays we are expecting more amount of cancer and the health disorders due to this application done by the 19th. We are facing the consequences even now because they will not degrade very quickly. It will be there as it is in the soil. So commonly methyl bromide, right? Methyl bromide, ethylene bromide, dasomate. These chemicals even nowadays also they are using the plantation sectors, right? Plantation sector mainly they are using as a gas, right? Mainly using as a gas. So sometimes it has been recommended in the liquid form also, but not preferred liquid form. Gas form is most preferred and recommended method. And organophosphates, right? These are the organophosphate, phenamifos methyl. Phenamifos methyl and phencylophthone. So phenamifos methyl is available in Sri Lanka. So these are in granular forms, right? Granular forms, and you can use certain extent only, but it's banned too. Like these whole chemicals are banned, but in case and carbofuran also it banned in the recently after 3 years ago banned it because it's a granular chemical is an overused, injudicious used for many purposes. That's how government is banned because they are causing the health effects. So these are the chemicals. So you can use, but these chemicals can minimize the nematode or kill the nematodes before application mainly. But one or two chemical you can use as a systemic, right? The systemics. So because why I am telling that the methyl bromide is a highly volatile. The highly volatile mean before and after treatment. Before treatment, you have to notify the people who are working or people who are living around the field or treatment area. In how many hours they should not go and work inside, or how many hours they should not expose into that environment. Because highly volatile can harm the human being as well and livestock as well. So methyl bromide, and because moderate volatile they are, but methyl bromide is highly used. And oxamine, right? Oxamine is a systemic one, so you can use in the soil, but it can change the soil microbial systems and even kill many beneficial microorganisms. So these are the tactics we can use. Now we can check one by one which one is highly efficacy, which one is low efficacy. Exclusion and avoidance, we call it as a quarantine, right? The quarantine method is moderate to high. In certain nematode, it moderately works. Certain nematode, it highly works. For example, in potato, for example, if you're taking in Sri Lanka, quarantine regulations will not work much for take example potato, because we are importing potato, we are importing onion for our consuming purpose. Whether we are not checking in the quarantine because it's for economic purpose. If accidentally introduced in our farmlands through the decomposing process, while it is decomposing, then there will be more chances of, that's what it is mentioned as moderate or high. Sometimes this is work highly. For example, soybean system nematode, for this one you can easily. Initial population density. So this cultural aspect, low to high, crop rotation, low to high, cleaning, the highly efficacy, and low to the, as I have mentioned that which practice is low to moderate or low to high efficacy for nematode management. Vertical resistance is another one. You all know about, I will discuss later in the vertical resistance. These are very high, but number of resistant hosts are very less. Mean you have to characterize the resistant gene and you have to put in your crop. Otherwise, it will not work. Right, so the biological control and suppression of nematode production, restriction of the crop damages, then suppression of the nematode production, host plant resistance. I told you the host plant resistance is an innate genetic makeup of the plant that can work against the organism that is going to attack on the certain their main crop. Them. For example, if you the tomato own immunity is there, then nematode will not act, will not attack, will not penetrate, will not multiply. There are 3 times, in 3 more they will work. One is will not allow to penetrate, first category. Second category, the nematode will penetrate and nematode will not multiply. Third category, nematode will not penetrate and will not, nematode will penetrate and will not multiply. There are 3 categories. Will not attack, first. Second category, will attack but will not invade. Third category, will attack, will invade, will not multiply. There are 3 ways these host plant resistant minimize the nematode incidences. Right? But the problem is number of resistant hosts. You have to characterize. So nowadays it is very easy because the advance is for genomics era. So you can easily identify, you can easily characterize the resistant. You can easily tag the resistant gene. Once you have tagged the resistant gene, you can easily map the gene from the chromosome wise. Once you have mapped in the chromosomes, then you can easily transfer through marker-assisted backcrossing. Right? So in the US, for nearly $400 million annually, they are minimizing the nematode incidences by using the resistant host in Mesogyne and Heterodira. These 2 nematode against, they are using the soybean cultivars. And this development of cultivars, they spend $100 million, but annually they are saving $400 million. You think about how much of profit. And with this host plant resistance will not harm any environment, will not harm to, it's an eco-friendly technique, but it will take time and it will be very difficult to identify the resistant host. There will be chances for the resistant breakage. So if the host is resistant, if you are continuously cultivating the host, then there will be more chances of breakage of host. That's how it has been mentioned. So these cultivars, for example, these are the cultivars. They have developed the resistance against these nematodes. Still, these hosts are very effective. These hosts are highly effective. But in certain crops, nematodes, these crops, they have developed resistance, but nematodes have already developed, which means they have broken the resistance of this host. Now these nematodes are attacking in this certain extent. Mean few gene, because we have to identify more gene and we have to incorporate this gene again and again into this cultivar gift. That's how nowadays they are not using the single gene technology. They are using the multiple gene, identifying the multiple resistant genes and incorporating or stacking into the crops. That's how there's no more chances of less resistant breakage. Otherwise, there will be resistance developed. So certain these crops, they already developed the resistance, but nematode is already broken. For example, and also these crops, especially these sugar beet and wheat, they are trying against these nematode populations, is still under process. So far, there is no any resistant host for these nematode in these crops. So maybe in few years later, they will develop resistant sources in these plants against these nematodes, right? So this is all I discussed in the field. Even some nowadays, the greenhouses and polytunnels, they are cultivating more under modified atmospheric conditions. In the modified atmospheric condition also, there is a less risky, but even chances for nematode infestation, right? For the nematode infestation, so you can use is sterilization of these polyhouses and application of sufficient of organic amendments and using the seedling from the healthy nursery. These three techniques, you can easily manage the nematodes compared to field, because in the field there are many environmental conditions and the extent is very large. You cannot modify the environment. But in the polytunnels or polyhouses, so at modified atmospheric cultivations, you can minimize, you can modify the environment and modify the certain inputs, and easily you can manage the nematodes. That's all for the day. If you won't ask any questions, and you can ask.